All right, kids. So we are going to be simplifying some expressions, mainly with the Pythagorean, Pythagorean identities over here. But also, it's going to include some of these reciprocal identities and tangents equal to sine over cosine. So I recommend that you put these all like on a separate sheet of paper in your notes, just so that way you're going to make the right replacement. So if you ever see, secant, that you recognize that that's 1 over cosine. All right. But also tangent equal to sine over cosine and cotangent equal to cosine over sine. That's going to be an important one. What I want to do here in this video is real quick give you some, amendments, maybe some extra things that you can get from the Pythagorean identities, just so that you have them readily available in your notes. Okay. So I'm just gonna work with this one. I'll let you guys do it for these other two. Okay. So they give us cosine squared plus sine squared is equal to 1. If I move the sine squared over to the right side, I'm going to be able to get cosine squared by itself, and that's equal to 1 minus sine squared. Bam. So you might run across having 1 minus sine squared somewhere in an expression, and you can just directly replace it with cosine squared. All right. This is something that you're going to want to be able to recognize anyway, even without actually taking the notes. But if you'll have them for this worksheet, I think it's going to help you a little. Similarly, if I solve for sine squared, I would just move the cosine squared to the right side. So it would give me sine squared is equal to 1 minus cosine squared. All right. In addition to these, we could have the negation of them. So that just means I'm going to add a negative. I'm going to add a negative to everything. All right. So if I take this equation and I add a negative, I would get negative cosine squared. Here, actually, let me back this down. I would get negative cosine squared is equal to negative 1 plus sine squared. So I'm adding a negative to every piece. Usually they won't write it in this order. Typically what you'll see is negative cosine squared is the same as just rearranging the terms. Sine squared minus 1. Okay? So if you ever run across a sine squared minus 1, you'll know that that's equal to negative cosine squared. Negative sine squared is equal to cosine squared minus 1. All right. Yep. So I'm just rearranging these two terms whenever I add a negative to the whole thing. And then as well, if you had a negative for this entire equation, for the original, it would just be, something like negative cosine squared minus sine squared is equal to negative 1. All right. So that's, as far as I can tell, that's all the possible ways that you can rearrange these equations. All right. Yep. So I'm taking this original, all right, the 3 pieces there, and I'm just rearranging them as many ways as I can, where I'm solving for each independent variable. Okay. So you might do the same thing with these other two, and that will probably help you when it comes to doing your homework on this stuff.